Hey everybody, GC Performance here, back with another video. And today, if you guys are watching this video, Specialized just announced and released the launch of their brand new cross-country bike, the Specialized Epic World Cup. In today's video, we're going to go over every single detail about this bike, talk about what they changed, what this bike is replacing, what is new on this bike, and also prices and how you can get this bike. I have a bunch of pictures of this bike in terms of sworks models, their colors. I also have pictures of their pro models as well, their frame sets, and I can show you guys everything that they changed and the progressive frame that they set up. It's been a long time coming. The Epic has been out for about 3 years now, since before the pandemic, I believe, or right when the pandemic hit, and there's been no changes to the bike, and this is something that is really a step in the right direction. Some people will say it looks very similar to like the Trek Super Caliber, but I'm here to tell you guys they did what looks to be a fantastic job. I do not have one of these bikes in my store. I'm going to talk about the weight of this bike as well because it's super lightweight for what they're claiming. But hopefully I'll get my hands on one soon, but we'll talk about that later in the video. So, first of all, let's talk about this bike real quick. It looks beautiful. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this thing real quick. Let me get my face out of the way. But this is the Specialized S-Works Epic World Cup. They used to have a World Cup edition back a couple years ago. It was their more progressive race bike itself. This bike is going to be inside of the Epic Hardtail category. This is what's supposed to replace their top tier S-Works Epic Hardtail. They will still keep their Epic Hardtails around as well for their base models, and I think maybe like a carbon level. So they have their S-Works Epic, which retails for $12,000, and then they have their Epic Pro as well, which retails for $9,000. And then underneath that, they'll have like their normal Epic Hardtails, but they'll all be kind of in that same category. But this is called their World Cup. It is a dual suspension bike. They have their brand new release of their rear shock, which is 75 millimeters in the rear, and then their front shock, which is a new fork for this year. It's a SID World Cup, SID SL, I believe, 110 millimeter travel. The brain is still on the front fork, but there is no brain in the rear shock. They completely changed that. They got rid of the brain for this bike, but again, they made some strides to make this thing a little bit more better. But first of all, look at the geometry on this bike. It looks very racy. It looks very fast, very aggressive. Even look at the crank. Look where this bottom bracket is. This thing is literally behind the seat tube. So literally, when you're pedaling, you're sitting forward over this thing. You're gaining leverage over that. I mean, it looks very. I have a frame set that I'm gonna show you guys, and you guys will see even better. But look at the belly of this bike and how it tucks away right here. I got a feeling this bike's gonna be super, super fast. Now, I don't have a ride review. I'm sure there's gonna be other YouTubers out there that are gonna say the normal BS ride review. Oh, it's comfortable where it needs to be, but my God, when you get up on it, it's just a rocket ship. You know, like the BS that everyone wants to hear. But I'm gonna tell you guys the nitty gritty, the brass tacks of this bike. So I'm sure you guys want to know the weight of this frame. Specialized is claiming that they took everything that they took from the Athos frame that they designed. Their super lightweight road bike with the tube shapes and their technology made this thing. They're claiming that this frame alone, painted with rear shock mounted and all hardware, the nuts and bolts, is 1,765 grams, which is crazy lightweight. They didn't put a size there, but it's crazy lightweight for a mountain bike with a rear shock mount on there for a frame. I'm very excited to see what this thing weighs in at because they also have on here their new cockpit for the 1x handlebar and stem integrated. Their seat post is super light as well, so I'm really, really excited to see what this is. Also with this bike, let's talk more a little bit about this rear shock here. So because there is no brain system on here, it is 75 millimeters travel. They're proclaiming that because of the fact that it has little to no sag at all in here, they're supposed to be ran like pumped up to a normal pressure, and there's very little sag in this shock, that it's going to perform just like a shock with 100 millimeter travel. But utilize only that 75 mils of travel. So there's not going to have that gulp feeling, like that kind of like bouncy feeling, that first initial impact. So it has that bouncy feeling. It's only going to use the suspension when it needs to. You're going to have 3 available positions for it. You're going to have an open, a mid, and also a lockout, where the open is going to be a little bit more playful. The mid is going to be kind of that trail riding, and a lockout is supposed to just be like rigid, all rigid completely. The best thing they did to the shock itself is that they completely, let me show you guys a picture of this thing. They completely, like I said, got rid of the brain for it because the past couple bikes that they released with the brain, they were having some issues with it. But not only that, they made it very easy for serviceable. The one thing that people did not like is that with these proprietary parts, like the brain, it was a pain in the butt for riders to get their brain serviced. It caused some downtime for the rider. It was about a 2 to 3 week turnaround. Usually had to be sent out. This right here is very similar to a SID SL rear shock. I think it's SID Lux rear shock. It's exact same rebuild kit, or very similar to a rebuild kit of a SID shock, and Specialized sell these rebuild kits for stores to do. So any shop can now do this in-house. Any consumer can do this in-house if they feel comfortable doing it. And people might look at this bike and be like, man, that's going to be a pain in the butt to remove. It's literally 2 bolts. It's this bolt you see right here, and it's a bolt in the front right here, and it drops right out. So now there's no more of these massive brain lines to remove, and it doesn't take a long time to do. It's literally 2 bolts as long as you don't strip them. It's very easy for mechanics to do at home and very easy for riders to have. They said that they'll have these rebuild kits in stock on launch day as well, which is great for the consumer, and it's just normal stuff as well to go ahead and rebuild this, which is nice. Very, very nice for the consumer. Some more upgrades on this bike. As we can see here, we do have internal cables running into the frame now. So for this rear brake, it's going right into the frame and it's popping on the bottom. They also included now, following like the Trek line, they have the integrated steer stopper. So now there's no more of the handlebar if you were to crash, or if you were to just have your bike on a bike rack and the handlebar was to swing and your brake was to hit the top tube. They have an integrated steer stopper now where this bar can only turn a limited amount of way. So that way the bike can never swing around and hit the top tube. It is much needed. I've seen this countless times of people bringing gouged top tubes from their brakes, swinging in the wind by accident, or the bike tipping over when leaning on a bush. It happens a lot more than people think. This needed to be done, and I'm very glad that they did it. As we can see here, this is the newest cockpit that they have out that you can actually buy for your bike now. You're going to get that included on the bike, where it's just a 1x setup, which is really cool. And then also you're getting, with the S-Works, you're going to get their new drivetrain, the SRAM Transmission SL, which is very, very cool. Here we can also see another look at the shock. This is the bolt system right here and the bolt system right there. For the S-Works, it's going to come in this red color that you guys just saw, which is what you saw the riders racing on, which is very cool. And also, it's going to come in this color, which I'm sure you guys have probably seen a leaked picture of this bike. Color looks phenomenal on here. This fade to this color. The detail of the paint looks gorgeous. Very, very nice. Now for specs, we're going to get into that real quick. Specs on this bike are, the frame is going to be 12M for the S-Works. The Pro model is going to be 11M. So it's going to be a difference in carbon tier. This is going to be their top tier carbon. I'm really excited to get this thing on scale. I'm sure it's going to be really lightweight. For the S-Works, again, you're going to get the XXSL transmission series. So this is the lightest weight that they have here. You're getting an included power meter. You're getting the Revol Control SL wheels as well. These are super lightweight wheels. 1,290 grams for the set. Almost lighter than majority, actually very lightweight wheels. Like they're lighter than some road wheels as well. Tires are a fast track tire on the front, a Renegade in the rear, a 29 by 2.3. 6-bolt SRAM rotors. You're getting the 110 millimeter travel SID SL fork with a brain in it, their new integrated cockpit, and also a carbon fiber seat post, which I believe is a 34.9 seat post, and an S-Works power meter saddle. I will show you guys the pro specs in a second, but yes, this is the look of it. And I think I might have one more picture of this real quick from the top tube angle. Bonita, very beautiful. And also with this new fork, with them proclaiming that the 110 travel, the reason why they made that little bit more travel is they said when they developed this fork that it sits in 15 millimeters of sag right away. So that way it's kind of like performing better, and that there's not that gulp feeling as well. So there's no need for a lockout, and it's going to perform what they wanted to. Whereas before they had the 100 millimeters shocks and it was sitting at like 85 mils of travel, this will kind of give you a little bit more range of travel on here to give you more capabilities while riding. Now for the Pro model, I have right here. Boom, that's a boom. Here's a Pro model. This bike will be launching around $9,000. So this is going to be their $9,000 price point bike. This is their Pro. This is the only color that I've seen that they have launched for this thing so far. It is $9,000. It is going to be 11M carbon. Good news is that the rear shock and the front fork are exactly the same as the S-Works. They did not change those because they are proprietary parts. These things are literally tuned from Specialized. I know everyone just thinks it's just like a stock shock, but no, they do specific tuning for these bikes themselves. And again, I think this bike's gonna be a rocket ship with the like this crank being so far back. I haven't seen this in a while where it's crazy. It's mind blowing. I'll show you guys this in a second. The picture I'm saying. But with the Pro, you are going to get the lack of the new handlebar setup. We can see here we just have the classic bar and stem on here. This is still an S-Works carbon fiber bar, but you still have the integrated cables and just an S-Works stem. On both bikes, the S-Works and the Pro, you will be getting the new stealth brakes, where the brakes themselves are hugging the bar more, which is pretty cool. The wheels themselves are going to be the controls, but not the control SLs. The main difference, the rim's exactly the same. It still has a 29mm internal width, but the hubs are different. These are a DT Swiss 350 hub and a rounded spoke, whereas the other ones are going to be, I believe, a Roval hub with DT Swiss 180 hubs, ceramic bearings, and bladed spokes. So a much lighter wheel. You do get fast track tire in the front, a Renegade tire in the rear, but these are the controls, whereas the S-Works will come with S-Works. And then you get the XO transmission drivetrain system with the UDH new system on here. 1052 cassette, 30 tooth chainring on here as well. No power meter, and then still a carbon fiber seat post with a Pro saddle on here. But the Pro color looks very nice. I don't think it has any issues. I think I have another picture of the Pro from the top tube. Looks very beautiful. Same way to remove that shock. Again, this is 11M carbon compared to the 12M. And I think I have wish I had a picture of the brakes themselves. But yeah, it's the new stealth brakes, where they're just basically, the stealth brakes are just tucked more on the bars, so that way it's easier to run the integrated cables into here like that. And then for the frame set, and this is where I definitely can show you guys. Look at this bottom. I haven't seen this in forever. Look at the belly of this bike. The bottom bracket is literally behind the seat tube itself. It comes with the seat tube on here. This is one of the frame sets. It retails for $6,000. You get the integrated shock with it. You get the front fork with it. You get the seat post with it. To me, compared to other bikes out there on the market, road bikes in general by every company, $6,000 for this, where you get a rear shock, a front shock, bolts, hardware, everything like that. That ain't a bad deal. $6,000 for that bike compared to $9,000 for the Pro. You're getting an S-Works frame set, and this is the 12M carbon. I'm not a big fan of this frame. I don't like the floral flowers. That's just my preference. It is what it is. You get the chain guide dropper on there. They do also have another all black frame, which has some detail on here, like this kind of like granite detail on this right here. This is more matte back here. Get this little Epic logo. But again, 75mm rear shock on here, 110mm travel on here. There were some questions at the Epic launch where they said they believe if maybe you could put a 120 travel on it. They didn't recommend it, but they said that people have done it. Again, we don't recommend, even me, I don't recommend changing fork travels out for bikes that are specifically designed for that fork travel. All right, so that is it for the launch of these bikes. So just so you guys know, to clear things up, this bike is the WorldCup. This is replacing the highest tier for the hardtail models. They're still going to continue to make the Epic model and also the Epic Evo as well. So you're going to have the Epic WorldCup, the Epic, and then the Epic Evo. So they'll have all three of those bike models. As of right now, they said they're still making all three of those. Prices for these bikes, the S-Works, which is this model right here, is $12,000 as is. A nice little price cut from, I think last year's model was $12,000 or $13,000. So $12,000 for this model right here with the new drivetrain, which I think is nice, and a power meter. The Pro, like I mentioned, is $9,000, so a little bit cheaper as well. You get that nice kind of look to it. The frame sets themselves are $6,000 if you want to do a custom build up on here. How can you guys buy these bikes when they come out? Well, basically, whenever this video comes out, it's when it's being released. What this means to you is that you're able to buy this bike from specialized.com. Me as a dealer, I did put in orders already for this bike, but I, as a dealer, will probably not see them in my store until late June. So the only way that you as a consumer get this bike is buying this bike online at specialized.com and sending it to us as dealers. Specialized is working with us to give us credit for these bikes as well. I think they're giving us 100% credit for these bikes. But I just wish I had these bikes in my hand to play with them. But the reason for what they said was that the bikes themselves have a very few. They have like a very slim run for the first release of them, and then they'll have more. So they want to just kind of put them out on specialized.com, let it be a free-for-all. And like I said, if you do ship it to your store, that store doesn't get credit. So if you want to help out your local stores, go ahead and ship it to them. Whether or not after that, I believe June 30th, we'll start seeing them in our store, maybe early July. But I want to get my hands on one. If someone is in my area that wants to buy a bike and ship it to me, I'll build it up. I'll love you forever, and I'll do a video on it so we can kind of weigh this thing because I'm excited to see it. But anyways, guys, if you have any questions, you let me know down below. I'm excited to see this thing in person. This bike, I'm sure, is gonna be a rocket ship. I got a feeling this bike's gonna dominate Florida. It's gonna be it looks like a badass bike. This is a bike I think is a great direction for Specialized. It's a nice breath of fresh air for the Epic as well, not to have that brain in the rear, and also easy servicing for these parts. So I'm very excited for this bike. Again, if you have any questions, let me know down below. Thank you guys.